On Saturdays, I teach understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And we deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place as well. So we can go through and look at this history chronologically and see cause and effect, and go through and look at this information step by step. Okay. Go through and look at this information step by step. I'm going to go back to the slideshow in just a second and deal with some of the information we deal with in understanding the transatlantic slave trade. You can register for both of these classes at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. I do a PowerPoint presentation. As you see, we have book references, articles, video clips, and we deal with thousands of years of history. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. Okay. We have, you can register for the classes separately, but we have them in the bundle pack, which is a value pack. The class is on sale $80, regularly $130. Okay. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade. I teach that on Sundays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So as soon as you register, we have some archived content. You can watch the class we just did this past weekend. We had a great class this past weekend. We dealt with some recent archaeological discoveries, because that's one of the things we look at in the class. So next class is Saturday, February 19th, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Click here to register here. And then on Sundays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., I teach from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And these classes just started up. So as soon as you register, you can watch the class we just did this past weekend. Next class is Sunday, February 20th. This class is on sale $80, regularly $130. And we look at history. We start in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase. We go through and look at history chronologically. Each class, we analyze about a 15, 20-year period of history to understand what happened to us after slavery ended, after Reconstruction, how we got to where we are now, to understand where we need to go from here, what needs to happen. So we deal with the Louisiana Purchase, Haitian Revolution. We talk about that some, which caused the Louisiana Purchase to take place. We deal with the Missouri Compromise of 1820. Texas won its independence in 1836. We deal with the Mexican-American War, 1846-1848. Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, 1848. The U.S. gets the land that makes up Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, California, Utah, and Nevada because of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. We deal with the Compromise of 1850. The Compromise of 1850, which includes the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. That's part of the Compromise of 1850. And we deal with all this history chronologically. Okay, we deal with the Civil War, Reconstruction, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement. But this is Dr. David Imhotep's book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. And his book deals with the African presence in the Americas, dating back at least 51,700 years ago. And he's a friend of mine. I've interviewed him a number of times. Some of you have seen the interviews I've done with him. Page 14 of his book deals with the archaeological discovery made by Dr. Albert Goodyear in 2004. Dr. Albert Goodyear is an archaeologist at the University of South Carolina. They found 13 different types of evidence thoroughly documenting an African presence of the Khoisan in the territory we call South Carolina, dating back at least 51,700 years ago. This is long before the Clovis culture, founded in New Mexico, that puts Homo sapiens in North America about 13,000, 14,000 years ago. They found artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups dealing with DNA and genetics, linguistics, paintings, skulls, skeletons, structures, and tools. They found 13 different types of evidence thoroughly documenting an African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago. His book is backed up by 713 footnotes and 7 peer-reviewed articles also. Read this article here about Dr. Albert Goodyear. This is from ScienceDaily.com. It's about his discovery. It's called New Evidence Puts Man in North America 50,000 Years Ago. This is from November 18th, 2004 from ScienceDaily.com. And this deals with, the discovery deals with the Khoisan, who have the oldest DNA on the planet. They're derogatorily called Bushmen. They're the ancestors to the Ainu and the Twa. They go all around the world. And they were here also in the land we call the United States of America. This is before Native Americans come into existence. African people were here in this land we call the United States of America tens of thousands of years before Native Americans come into existence. So when we talk about African American History Month, Black History Month, we have to deal with the totality of our history. And when you look at some of the annual themes going back to 1928, some of those themes dealt with the continent of Africa. And Dr. Woodson didn't just talk about studying our history in this country, but he talked about understanding African global history, the history of African people throughout the diaspora, but also on the continent of Africa. In October 2012, genetic study published in Science magazine found that the Khoisan in Southern Africa are the oldest ethnic group of modern humans, with their ancestral line originating about 100,000 years ago. The Khoisan, formerly called by the derogatory term Bushmen, are genetically unique, and no other currently known population have separated so early from our common modern human ancestor, according to the report. The Khoisan live mainly in Southern Africa, in territory spanning Botswana, Namibia, Angola, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. They are largely divided into two groups: hunters and gatherers, the Sans people, and keepers of livestock, the Khoi. The Khoisan languages include the distinctive click sounds that are not found in the languages of their neighbors. The distinctive click sounds that are not found in the languages of their neighbors. AtlantaBlackStar.com is a good article, 5 ethnic groups that prove the first humans were Black. Now, this is a clip of Dr. David Imhotep on WKRP in Cincinnati, Channel 5. And if we look at this here, okay, so this archaeological discovery, this deals with, on the Greek island of Crete, stone tools that date back 130,000 years ago were found over the course of 2 summers on the Greek island of Crete, which seems to push Mediterranean sea voyaging back 100,000 years. This is causing the scientists to rethink everything. Crete has been an island for more than 5 million years, meaning the tool makers must have arrived by boat. So it seems to push the history of Mediterranean voyaging back more than 100,000 years, specialists in Stone Age archaeology say. This is Thomas Heraklion, the lost city of Egypt. There have been a few lost cities found recently, actually, the past 15 years or so. This is a discovery from 2013 that was revealed in 2013. They found 150 feet beneath the Bay of Abu Qir off Egypt's sea. They found 64 ships, 16-foot tall statues, 700 anchors. This is an article from news.yahoo.com. Sunken Egyptian city reveals 1,200-year-old secrets. This is from April 30th, 2013. These are some of the statues that they found at the bottom of the sea. All right. Let me see here very quickly. Okay, so in this class, we deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. We deal with thousands of years of history, what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We deal with ancient Kemet, the Nile Valley region of Africa. We deal with understanding the transatlantic slave trade. We deal with the Middle Passage, the role that Christopher Columbus played also. We look at different civilizations. We look at ancient civilizations, Abyssinia, Ta-Nehisi, Nubia, ancient Kemet, things like this. We look at Carthage. We look at Ghana, Songhai, Mali. Look at the role Christopher Columbus played. And we go through and look at this history chronologically to see what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place also. Okay. And let me see here. If we look at, let's look at something interesting. So we deal with Freemasonry as well. And the teachings from ancient Kemet and the symbolism that's infused into Freemasonry, like the Tekken, coming from the story of Asar set in Heru, the resurrection story of Asar, and the Washington Monument is a Tekken. We know that there were at least 1,200 Tekken Nu, approximately 1,200 Tekken Nu, for plural, built in ancient Kemet. Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt, meaning land of the blacks. But there are only about a dozen today, somewhere between 7 to 12 today in Egypt. Many of the Tekken Nu removed from Egypt are now in Istanbul, Turkey, London, France. Not London, England, Paris, France, Berlin, Germany, New York, Rome, Italy, Vatican City, and elsewhere throughout the world. The Tekken Nu are now called obelisks by their new owners, and few know their origin or that they symbolize the resurrection of the African king Asar. When you study Star Wars is a version of that retelling of that story of Asar and fighting against Asar and Set and Heru avenging his father. Okay. When you look at George Lucas, who created Star Wars, George Lucas had a teacher named he had a teacher named Joseph Campbell, and Joseph Campbell taught George Lucas about myths. Okay, one of the myths he taught him about was about Osiris and Isis and Horus or Asar or Set and Heru, and the brother Set, who ends up killing his brother Asar, and Asar's death is avenged by his son Heru, who the Greeks called Horus. The mythology of Star Wars with George Lucas, the struggle between heroes and villains, and the influence of a higher force are the essence of mythology and resonate within all cultures, providing storytellers with a natural framework for spinning tales. This was there's an interview that Bill Moyers did in 1999 with George Lucas about Star Wars and about myths and things like this. Now, when we look at Freemasonry, the word Mason is derived from the Latin words mass and sun. Mason means child of light and expresses the desire to pursue light, which is a metaphor for the sun, which symbolizes knowledge. The term child of light, or sons and daughters of light, was first used to identify students who had completed 42 years of study in the temples of ancient Kemet. Many Masonic temples were modeled after the temples of ancient Kemet, places where light or knowledge was imparted in a series of steps or degrees. If you read pages 18 and 32 of Egypt on the Potomac by Tony Browder, and Browder's a brilliant brother. I've interviewed him a number of times, and this is one of the books we use in the class also, Egypt on the Potomac. You don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in class, but this is one of the ones we use in class, Egypt on the Potomac. So the concept of liberal arts colleges comes from ancient Kemet, comes from the temples. When you read Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, he deals with this, and the trivium and the quadrivium, the seven liberal arts, the rhetoric and the logic and arithmetic, things like this. Masonic temples are considered houses of light or temples of learning. The term Mason or child of light is a direct reference to the highest degree of the Kemetic education system. The 33 degrees of instruction within Masonry represent a fraction of the 360 degrees of instruction that comprise the Kemetic system of education, yet with less than 10% of the wisdom of ancient Kemet, Freemasons have held positions of influence and power throughout the world for over 200 years. And then when you deal with the Knights Templar, who are founded 1118 AD, right around the time of the Second Crusade, the Knights Templar are studying the teachings that the Moors, the African Moors, take into Europe, coming from the Nile Valley region of Africa. This is why we have to look at this history chronologically. So in this class where we do thousands of years of history, ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, where they didn't teach you in school, we go through and look and see how this knowledge goes from the Nile Valley region of Africa into Europe. And we're going to see it go around the world, but it goes into Europe, and we're going to see it come to the U.S. in the colonies with the founders of the colonies and the Masons, and the Declaration of Independence, and 50 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons, things like this. But what we taught Europeans when the Moors go into Europe in 711 AD, what we taught Europeans is going to come back to kick us in the behind. This is why I say I wish we had never taught them. I think it's slide number 147 or something like that. But this is why I say I wish we had never taught them when we get to Tariq ibn Ziyad. It's slide 184. I'm sorry. So I have like probably about between these two classes, probably somewhere around 400 slides. 711 AD. The Moors go into the Iberian Peninsula. Wasn't called Spain and Portugal then. General Tariq ibn Ziyad in 711 AD crossed the straits and disembarked near a rock promontory, which from that day has borne his name, Jebel Tariq, Tariq's mountain, or Gibraltar, also called the Rock of Gibraltar, which is named after an African man, a Moor, Tariq ibn Ziyad. And then we see the Moors. They're going to conquer the Vandals and the Visigoths and settle in the southern portion of the Iberian Peninsula, and call it Al-Andalus. In the aftermath of these brilliant struggles, thousands of Moors flooded into the Iberian Peninsula. So eager were they to come that some are said to have floated over on tree trunks. Tariq ibn Ziyad himself, at the conclusion of his illustrious military career, retired to the distant east. We are informed to spread the teachings of Islam. There is really no need to speculate on the ethnicity of these early invaders of the conquest period. Primary Christian sources relating to the conquest, particularly the Primera Chronica General of Alfonso X, make the following observation regarding the Moors. Quote, their faces were black as pitch. The handsomest among them was as black as a cooking pot. The handsomest among them was as black as a cooking pot. This is Saint Maurice, who was a Moor as well, and was a martyr. And he was worshipped as the patron saint of Germany, because the concept of patron saints really comes from the Neteru. Okay, different patron saints were said to watch over different groups of people, and different patron saints had different attributes. So Saint Nicholas, who was an African as well, was an African saint. And this is the saint that the mythological character Santa Claus is based upon. Sinterklaas in Dutch means Saint Nicholas. Okay, and Sinterklaas was a religious figure amongst the Dutch, and you see them worship in Holland. You see the December 5th, you see the feast of Saint Nicholas, and these are these are things we go through and do all this history in this 10-week online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay, how's everybody doing? How you all like this type of information? When we look at, so around December 5th, December 6th each year, early December, you'll see articles dealing with Sinterklaas. Okay, you'll see articles dealing with Sinterklaas and Zwarte Piet. All right, And let me see, we have this here in the presentation. Center class and Zwarte Piet. What the hell is it? It's in here somewhere. Okay. I've got to find it. But anyway. So there's you'll see these articles dealing with this celebration amongst those in Holland. And it's a Black Piet, Zwarte Piet. Black Piet in the mythology is a Moor who was a slave to center class, okay? And they have this parade in the Netherlands. They have this parade, and these white people put on blackface, and they put on costumes from like the 17th century. This right here. Center class and Zwarte Piet. Zwarte Piet means Black Piet. Why a holiday has me talking to my kids about blackface. Now, this takes place every year in Holland. Okay. They dress up. Now, this person right here in the red and white is dressed up as center class. Center class among the Dutch was brought to the U.S. in the early 1700s. This religious figure of center class got transformed into the mythological secular figure of Santa Claus. Center class is Dutch for Saint Nicholas. And you see them dressed as Moors around him, black face, red lipstick, afro wigs, oftentimes gold hoop earrings. Okay. And when you read this article by Tracy Brown Hamilton, December 4th, 2018, it goes through and it talks about and Zwarte Piet comes from a children's story. Okay. And they talk about center class, a major Dutch holiday similar to Christmas in the United States. The tradition is this: on the second Saturday of November, Zwarte Piet, Black Piet, arrives in the Netherlands on a steamboat from Spain, where the Moors go in 711 AD. It's called the Iberian Peninsula there. Then the Zwarte Piet, Black Piet, the Moor, arrives in the Netherlands on a steamboat from Spain, along with center class, a towering, thin, and plushly dressed figure. Hundreds of people gather to watch the steamboat arrive. The Piets, the Black Piets, dance and wave while brass band music plays until center class disembarks on a white horse, with the Piets walking at his side to greet and offer treats to the children. The ritual repeats in various cities around the Netherlands until December 5th, the name day of St. Nicholas. Okay, that's his feast day, December 5th. Now, Zwarte Piet, according to folklore, is an assistant to center class and of Moorish descent. Black Piet, Zwarte Piet, according to folklore, is an assistant to center class and of Moorish descent, and they say that he comes on a steamboat from Spain. Traditionally, since Piet's first appearance in a children's book in 1850, Zwarte Piet is portrayed as a very dark-skinned character with red lips, curly black hair, and giant hoop earrings. Because the Moors wore oftentimes giant hoop earrings, including the men. When Black Piets or Zwarte Piets appear in person, they are portrayed by volunteers in blackface. Okay, so read the rest of this, because there's more each year. There's more and more protests against this and saying, wait a second, this is racist what you're doing. You got white people dressed up. Okay, and then what happened was you said, yeah, some white people that said, well, no, it's soot on Black Pete's face. It's not racist. No, he slides down the chimney and he has soot on his face. But during Black Pete's season, so while the dark all over black makeup has in some areas been replaced by a less heavy-handed sooty look, the story being that Black Pete is dirty from climbing through chimneys to deliver presents. Well, they adopted that as because they got backlash, because they were saying, wait a second, this is blackface you're putting on. And they said, no, Black Pete, he's just black because he slides down the chimney. That's soot on his face. But he doesn't have soot on his uniform. He doesn't have soot on his costume. Why you had the red lipsticks? Why does he have big red lips? Why does he have an afro wig? The origins of the character and his appearance remain steeped in racism. And explaining racism to children in the context of one of their most celebrated characters, most kids want to dress up as mischievous Black Pete Joie de Piet, very few as the more serious Saint center class. It feels akin to explaining animal abuse through the lens of Santa's reindeer. But you go back to encoding the racism into a children's story, which deals with media, which deals with conditioning them. And this in Joie de Piet dates back to a children's book in 1850. All right, so if you like this type of information, you want to register for the 10-week online class that I teach on Saturdays. This is just a sample of the type of information we deal with in the class. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. I do a PowerPoint presentation. These are some of the actual slides from the presentation. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. We'll post a link here. You can register here and at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. Okay. A year from now, 2 years from now, if you want to go back and watch the entire 10-week online class, you can do that. Once you register for the class, you can go back and access it as much as you want to. The class is regularly $130. Is on sale $80 because I have to pay money for the two platforms that I teach the class on, and it takes a lot of work to teach these classes. There's a ton of articles that I reference. There's numerous books that I reference. You don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in class. There's a lot of this information I show you, and then the video clips also that we deal with. You can use this with your children also. I would say the information is PG-13. It's not overly graphic. I don't do a lot of cursing, things like that. It's not crazy. Okay. It's very visual. You're going to learn a ton of information. There's a timeline of history that we go through also. We have so this is the first class I teach. That's on Saturday. The other class is on Sunday. You can register for the classes in a bundle pack also. So we have, for a limited time only, we have a bundle pack on sale, $120, both classes. That's a $260 value for $120. Okay. And as soon as you register, you can watch the classes we did this past weekend. And we'll post a link here. And the link is also in the thread of this broadcast. We have the course bundle link also. If you've taken any of the online classes I've taught in the past, and I've been teaching online classes since 2017. If you've taken any of the online classes I've taught in the past, email me at ahnshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You get a 50% discount on the bundle pack. Okay. Email me at ahnshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com if you're a returning student to the African History Network School. And we have the information here at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay. And then on Sunday, the class that I teach is from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Both classes, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power is on Sundays. Next class, Sunday, February 20th. In this class, we largely pick up where the first class, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, leaves off. And I just started teaching the second class in 2021 because there's so much information that I had in Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade. I couldn't get all of it into 10 weeks. And this period of time of history from 1865 through 1968 is a crucial period of time in history. So I wanted to be able to really dig in each class, analyze about a 10 or 20 year period of history, so we can understand the laws and policies put in place, especially after slavery ends and during Reconstruction, and the attacks on African Americans and the laws and policies put in place during the Jim Crow era, things like this. And we studied Great Migration, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power movement, to understand how we got to where we are today, to understand where we need to go from here. Okay, so that's the second class. All right, now we're going to wrap up here in just a minute because I've got to get out of here. I don't know about you all, but I've got a lot of work to do. So we also deal with Ghana, Shanghai, and Mali. We deal with Christopher Columbus. Now, Columbus is, when we deal with Spain, this information dealing with Spain is so crucial because Columbus conquers. First of all, Columbus never comes to the land we call the United States of America. Okay. And Columbus conquers Haiti, Hispaniola. The western third of the island of Hispaniola is where Haiti is, Saint Dominique, that the French call Saint Dominique, right? The Haitian Revolution is related to the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. All right, because one of the reasons why France sold the Louisiana territory, 828,000 square miles of land for less than 3 cents an acre, to the U.S., one of the reasons why they sold all that land is because they were getting the hell kicked out of them by the Haitians. That's one of the reasons why they sold the land. So that land acquisition was signed off on by Thomas Jefferson, 1803. And so we see that Cuba, Haiti, and Puerto Rico, all we've seen in the news in the last 3 months, they were all conquered by Columbus for Spain, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. And this is in 1492, and also he conquered Jamaica as well. And what we're going to do is see these fights over these new lands that Europeans are conquering. Columbus is using nautical instruments based upon technology that the Moors introduced into Europe. This is why I say I wish we never taught them. Everything we taught Europeans came back to kick us in the behind. Everything we taught them came back to kick us in the behind. The Moors introduced spherical globes and almanacs. So Europeans are learning what's in Africa and what's in the different areas where the Moors are coming from. And then when they conquer these islands in the Caribbean, they're setting up sugarcane plantations. The Spanish are setting up sugarcane plantations. The French are setting them up. Okay, so the Spanish and French have them in Hispaniola. Okay, they're going to have them in Cuba. All of this, the British are going to have this. The British are going to have sugarcane plantations also. All this stuff came back to kick us in the behind. We saw that the Bahamas recently announced that they were cutting ties with Queen Elizabeth, rightfully so. So, and then we're going to see that. So Columbus helps to lay the foundation of the transatlantic slave trade, even though it doesn't start with the Spanish. It starts with the Portuguese in 1441. it's really going the Portuguese dominate for the first 200 years, but the Spanish are really going to help expand it. And with King Charles I or King Charles V, 1518, with the Asiento de Negros, we're going to see that it expands the transatlantic slave trade as well with the Asiento, which gives a license to the Doctrine of Discovery, 1452, Pope Nicholas V, and the Papal Bull. I was looking for the Asiento de Negros. Bartolomé de las Casas, 1517, suggests that Africans be made slaves to King Charles V. King Charles V signs the Asiento de Negros, which is a license given to slave trading nations, given to European nations and slave traders to provide to provide the Spanish colonies with slaves. Okay, slavery comes to the New World after African slaves were first brought to the New World shortly after its discovery by Christopher Columbus. Okay, legend has it that one slave was included in his original crew, and they could be found on Hispaniola, site of present-day Haiti, as early as 1501. Upon his arrival in the Bahamas, Columbus himself captured 7 of the natives for their education on his return to Spain. However, the slave trade proper only began in 1518 when the first black cargo direct from Africa landed in the West Indies. The importation of African slaves to work in the Americas was the inspiration of the Spanish bishop Bartolomé de las Casas, who traveled on voyages with Columbus and kept a diary, and he wrote books about the atrocities that Columbus inflicted upon the indigenous people and upon the Native Americans and African people. Bartolomé de las Casas, whose support of black slavery was motivated by quote unquote humanitarian concerns, he said he later regretted saying that Africans should be enslaved exclusively. Right Reverend Bishop Bartolomé de las Casas argued that the enslavement of Africans and even of some whites, proving that in the early period, slavery did not operate according to exclusive racial demarcations early on. He argued that enslaving Africans, and in some cases white people, would save the indigenous American Indian populations or Native American populations, which were not only dying out, but they were also engaging in large-scale resistance as they opposed their excessively harsh conditions. So he was saying that the Native Americans had suffered enough, and to enslave exclusively African people, in some cases white people, but leave the Native Americans alone. As a result, King Charles V of Spain, King of Spain, agreed to the Asiento de Negros. The Asiento de Negros, which is a slave trading license in 1518, which later represented the most coveted prize in European wars, as it gave to those who possessed it a monopoly in slave trafficking. This is the Asiento. And this expands the transatlantic slave trade. This is the Spanish doing this as a result of Columbus and his 4 voyages via Bartolomé de las Casas. Now, how many people have never heard of Bartolomé de las Casas? All right. So those are just a few of the things that we deal with in the online classes. How you all like this type of information? All right, so you can join us in class this weekend, and as soon as you register, you can start watching last week's class, and there's bonus content. Also, there are 15 bonus lectures you're going to get from me in digital format when you register for Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. There's 15 lecture bundle pack, the Michael Imhotep 15 lecture bundle pack. You can order it in DVD format from our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It's on sale $100, but the lectures in digital format is going to be included in when you register for this class here. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. All right, so if you've taken any of these online classes before, you have any questions, email me at ahnshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And as soon as you register for the class, you can start watching the content. And you can join us in class for our next class. You can sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter also. And we've got this information here. All right. And then I'll be on a panel discussion coming up on the 23rd? Wednesday, February 23rd, I'm on a panel discussion dealing with reparations for Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, my sisters. We have the information on I'm going to put this on our website also. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It's on my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page. This one here, let me see. So this is a panel discussion for African American History Month dealing with reparations. So you already know my concept of the information I do with reparations is dealing with legal arguments for reparations. Not a lot of this stuff that's floating around. A lot of it is just a bunch of nonsense, to be honest with you. And I talk about repairing the damage of 246 years of slavery and decades of Jim Crow segregation. But we'll post a link on our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, because you can, it's going to be on Zoom. And you'll be able to watch it on Zoom, okay? You'll be able to watch it on Zoom. Wednesday, February 23rd, 7 p.m., Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Michigan State Organization, Social Action Committee. There I am. I'm on the flyer. We're talking about reparations. So I deal with logical, realistic, legal arguments for reparations. Okay, we ain't going to get 20 trillion, 30 trillion, 14 trillion. That ain't going to happen. Republicans wouldn't even vote for the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. No Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for that bill. And that was going to help a lot of poor white people that voted to put them in office. So you can come up with whatever number you want. Doesn't matter how much you think you're owed. Only thing that matters is how much you can actually collect. All right, we're out of time here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Give us a thumbs up or heart if you like this broadcast. You register for the classes. I get deep into all this information in the online classes as well. Okay. Right now, it's correct wrong behaviors not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And if you like this type of information, also, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show, SHOW through Cash App, and also through PayPal, paypal.me /the AHN Show, paypal.me /the AHN